Hello everybody and welcome. Today we are going to be designing our very own Nike Air Max by using a couple new tools here, specifically thinking about gradients. So the transition from one color to another. We're also going to play around with a new selection tool called the Magic Wand tool. So let's go on ahead and get started. So once you have your file open up in photopea.com, we are going to go over in our toolbar and we're going to select our Magic Wand tool. Now to get there, it might be behind your object selection tool or your quick selection tool. Now you can either click and hold on this icon to bring up the options window. We're going to grab the Magic Wand tool. You can also just click W as in wand, and then you can select that Magic Wand tool. And then that one kind of looks like a firecracker here. So you want to make sure that your icon looks like this. Now, once we have our icon for our Magic Wand tool selected, we now need to make a selection on our shoe. So what I'm going to do is press Control plus, and I'm going to zoom in a little bit so I can get a little more in focus here. Now I'm going to start by just selecting maybe this section right in here. So with my Magic Wand tool selected, I'm going to go ahead and just click with my mouse inside of here. Now some things I want to point out if we zoom in is that it's left out some of the stitching here, and that's okay. If you want to get a little more precise, what we're going to do is we can hold Shift on our keyboard and we can click some of those spaces that we're missing to get a better selection with our Magic Wand tool. So now as I'm looking at all of my dotted lines here, I see that we have most of that section selected pretty well. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select my gradient tool. Now the gradient tool we can get to simply by hitting G as in Gary on our keyboard, or we can go over here and select our gradient tool from the toolbar that looks like a gradient from light to dark here. Now if you don't see it over here, it could be behind your paint bucket tool, so you can just click and hold that icon and grab your gradient tool. Once we have our gradient tool selected, now you need to decide on two different colors to go between. So in my case right now I have red and blue. If you'd like to change these to say like the Lakers colors, you just need to click on that top colored square and you can select a nice purple here. And if you need a yellow, then we'll simply click where it's blue here and we'll go down and we can select a good gold yellow color. Once you have your two different colors selected, we're ready to start. So I'm going to zoom out and hit Control plus just so we can see the whole effect on the shoe here. Now with my gradient tool selected, I'm going to click at a certain point on my shoe and I'm going to drag this line out. Now depending on how far I pull this line out, shows how long that gradient is going to take to fade from one color from the front to the back. So watch what we get here. So notice how as I have selected, I have the front of my shoe is purple and the back of my shoe is yellow, and then we have a gradient from purple to yellow happening here. Now watch what happens if I make that line shorter. Notice how there's more yellow, and if I make that line longer, there's then going to be more purple and almost no yellow. So play around with that distance there. Now as you go through, once you've made your first selection and you're ready to move on, you need to hit Control D on your keyboard to deselect that area before you move on. Once you've hit Control D, you need to then select your Magic Wand tool again and select a new area. So for my next one, I'm going to go ahead and select this top part. I'm going to check my selection, see if I'm missing anything, and it looks like I got it okay. I missed a section up here, so I'm going to hold Shift and I'm going to click up there and get a little more. I'm also notice that I'm missing this whole front of my shoe here, so I'm going to hold Shift and also click there as well to make sure I get that full selection. Once I have that all selected like I did down here, I'm then going to grab my gradient tool again and I'm going to drag that out. Now play around with the direction. So if I want it to go the same way, I might try and get my gradients to start lining up so it's the same thing all the way through. I could also try and play around with what happens if I drag from the right and go to the left. So notice now how my gradient starts off purple on the other side and moves to the other direction. And that could be a fun thing to play around with too. Now, as you're going through this, make sure you're getting good selection. So notice how I missed it a little bit here. Now in yours, that's okay, but you want to make sure a majority of your selection has been fully colored in with your gradient. Make sure you're using gradients and not solid colors. You also want to make sure that you leave no white space. Now, if you want to leave your Nike white or you want to leave your shoelaces white, that's okay. But for the most part, everything needs to be colored in with a gradient.